Okay, so we'll continue the example. Today we are not only going to see what is activity lifecycle, and we are going to do some layouts, I mean designs, because that's where the starting point. We have to make ourselves comfortable with creating any kind of design what our client wants. So a design, in this case Android, we are using XML to do the job, and XML having some sort of layouting technique, I mean through Android SDK. We are going to place the components, or probably what we call in terms of Android widgets. Widgets mean a button, edit text, input field. I'm going to call it as edit text here. Checkbox, radio button, whatever properties we will be using in our view. Those things I'm going to call them as widgets. So it's a naming terminology in Android. So those widgets, if at all required, how we are going to place them and where we are going to keep them, uh, that actually forms the UI. In fact, the images, header, footers, whatever design techniques we are going to have. Everything we are going to do through an XML. As we already know, XML, a tag opens mean it has to be properly closed, and nested childs are allowed. I mean inner tags and should also be nested. It's same like HTML in one point, but HTML typically not so strict. If you miss some certain tags, also browsers still try to display the content. But whereas in XML we have to be very careful. We have to nest the whatever nodes is there properly, and if any nodes defined within another nodes should be nested accordingly, so that that particular end of the node does not come out of the parent node. So those things how we are going to do today, we are going to see. And if you look at this particular code, what we were doing, one second, presentation mode. Okay, so we had a couple of activity lifecycle methods implemented, and we understood how things goes on as uh, something changes happening on the phone screen. So when application is visible, when the very first time opened, uh, I was telling the method on create being executed, and of course next on resume is executed. What I tried to say, like an object has to be created in the very first time the application rendered on the screen. Whatever objects, for example your widgets, your application may contain a button or may contain a form element such as edit text, where the user can type something. Button, checkbox, whatever it is, should be initialized as Java objects. Remember, here some sort of convention also we need to do, because those objects what we are going to, or widgets what we are going to specify in XML, those things should be converted as a Java objects here, so that it can be used in runtime. Runtime mean in the code execution. So any object creation, if your application requires some sort of object creation, those steps you can do it in onCreate method. Contain some arguments. We'll come back to it. What kind of argument it is? How it could be useful for us. And the second one, on resume, it will make sure on create went successfully. And as things progress, user may hit a back button. So in that case, pause, stop, destroy one by one would be called, because application about to get closed permanently. Maybe on stop or on pause or somewhere would be the better place to back up our object. If at all we need to save the data, so we kind of take some sort of decisions over here, because the application is going to be closed. So the application may proceed, if any use data or whatever objects initialized in onCreate, we can go and proceed persist it. For example, if I need to save it, for example user is composing a longer SMS for some sort of text, he's typing, suddenly he decided to quit the application. In that case, quitting the application will destroy whatever the content he has typed on the phone or the particular application, because the application is going to be closed, or any running object will also be destroyed. So I can decide something if I need to save the content somewhere. For example, when application the user click on the back button, I can save it somewhere in a persistent engine such as SQLite or preference managers. Of course, Android has a similar thing what we saw in HTML5. Uh, Android has a built-in database called SQLite, and also it has similar to local storage. It has what we are going to call it as a preferences. So two storage engines, it's already there in Android, so I can decide them. Okay, let it save so that user comes back to an application whether from a background or new when he try to attempt it to open new, whatever way I can restore the item. So I can decide any sort of backup, data backup within this method. Either could be on pause or on stop, wherever it is. So I can decide, okay, if any data to be backed up, I can decide in this methods. Of course, destroy typically gives a confirmation the application destroyed or application closed properly. So it means your backup went well, and of course your application no more visible, and the application can proceed closing your application and kill all the objects whatever it is in place. So these lifecycle methods gives us an edge over deciding something on our my application state. So create block is for initialize the objects. One, resume confirms the objects were initialized successfully, and of course your application been created successfully. And pause tells the application proceed for closing, but still visible, but it is proceed for closing. Mean application, it's a microsecond between the visible to invisible state. I was telling about as application from zoom to slowly get close, the microsecond time is on pause. When application completely goes away in the view, it's no more visible. It gives a confirmation that application is invisible. But in this point, I may not be knowing whether the application is about to get closed or it's going to be minimized. So the latter method confirms, okay, the application is permanently closed. But if anything it does not go beyond on stop, tells us, okay, the application is minimized. So those are all the terminologies. So for once, we will see them how things goes on one more time. So I've already installed my application. If not, probably I can. So a couple of methods already been printed. I'll clear them. So let me run the application. This activity lifecycle and the way it executes very important as far as understanding the Android operating system or SDKs in place, because that's from the very basic thing for any professional developer opt for Android development. This guy prints all the older logs also. Okay, anyway, never mind. You can notice the timestamp. So from there, okay, this particular two lines have been printed uh, recently by once application became visible. For example, the application is running now. So in this case, two lifecycle methods being called. So I try to see if I can magnify. So create and resume called one by one. So in this case, application very first time opened, and it executed the lifecycle method on create, and it went to on resume. So in this case, I'm going to do something to my application. So I'm going ahead on clicking the home button in this case, because home button will minimize my application rather than closing it. So I'm hitting it. Let me see what happens. Okay, the application is no more visible now. So I notice two methods being executed in this case: pause and stop. So application did not execute a method called destroy, so it clearly tells the application has got minimized. So application still running, but it's simply not showing in the screen. This is particularly true when you hit the home button, or if any phone call comes on the top of it, of anything which disturb your current UI. It could be a various reason. I could recall it may be user influenced or maybe a system influenced one also. System influenced means the phone call takes control automatically. You do not do, but suddenly somebody calls. The phone automatically push your existing application to pause and stop mode and then bring your dialer screen on the top of it. So the application running, but it has lost the view. Okay, I mean the visibility. Now the possibility again. Seriously, the phone user does not know whether the application is minimized or currently running. There may be some options to see in this button, see currently running application, but still a vendor modified one. Some vendors modify in such a way, only snapshot they give, some vendor tells it's a currently running application, some vendor put a task manager kind of application stating this what are all the applications are running, so it depends. So what user understand, okay, the application is no more visible. He may assume, okay, application either minimize or close, whatever it may be. So he'll try to bring it back by going to a launcher screen again and click on the same application. The application will come on screen now. So in this case, if you notice the lifecycle methods has executed, the method on receive method has got executed. So when create called, resume called, and it was the very first time application open, and pause stop was called when application minimized, and again the application resumed. So very clearly tells this particular cycle involves minimizing an application and bring it back to a or restoring the application. So these sequences happened if you notice: create, resume, pause, stop, resume. So in this case, the resume has been called. So it means application went to a background, mean minimize, went up to stop call, and then again been resumed. It means the application right now visible from the background. So this cycle is very important. You notice application never stops or never halt at pass. Mean application, if at all it executes, if pause is executed, the next stop would be stop only, because nowhere you will encounter the pause is the last execution. Pause is an on the way process. Mean pause, that's what I was telling about, it between a microsecond part where the application going from visible to invisible state. So the particular application never halts at pause, it immediately executes stop. If anything goes wrong in the pause itself, where you do not see the stop call, something wrong or something went wrong in your application. But typically, so the stop confirms the application minimization went successfully. Similarly, the create, there won't be application stopping the create itself. Once it create executed, it will immediately go to resume. So the create never a halting part. So if at all create executed, the next line should execute resume. So it's, if something goes wrong in the create itself, mean the resume won't be called, mean it is giving a clear indication that object creation went unsuccessful, your application, something went wrong, exception error happened, or something happened. Those kind of errors in Android, we call them ANR, Android not responding, I remember. So ANR errors or typically happens through by some sort of execution errors or exception error or object initialization went unsuccessful or something. So in that case, if create and resume it's not been called together, mean something happened in the object creation itself. Maybe something wrong in your layout or something object initialization went wrong, something has happened. So that's where you start debugging your application. So the create and pause methods never hold the application, or it immediately it executes their entire function and pass the control to resume. In case if it is create, for a pause application, it will make sure it will execute every lines of code in the pause function, immediately execute stop. So these two lines you can understand. So resume in this case can be called individually, or in such a case application coming from background to foreground. So resume alone would be called, or resume can be called along with the create if the application is first time open. And the destroy will only be called if an application is completely closed. So if you notice the destroy method or function being executed, you can safely confirm the application is closed now. So in that case, the destroy I can reproduce by clicking the back button. you notice, it again followed a sequence. First, it made sure it started the minimization process, and the minimization went successfully, and finally the application totally closed. So the sequence. So in this case, a stop could be on the way process, or it can be a halting process as well, because if control stops at stop on stop itself mean application has been minimized, or if stop gives the control next to destroy mean the application not only minimized and finally went closed also. So this is the sequence. So if you see pause and stop every time called with a pair, it's like, if a pause call mean there would be a stop. So in such a case, if create call mean the next line would be resume. If something goes wrong with this particular relationship means something went wrong in the previous method. So destroy, if it is being called mean it would be surely after executing pause and stop only. This destroy won't be called directly. So it has to do certain processes, pause, stop, destroy. It's a pair. These are all the methods. And of course, user may opt for opening their application one more time. So in this case, again the cycle starts, and because it starts from create, because the application previously was destroyed, and again the object creation happened, the resume happened, and the like cycle will continue. So we have to see how these things are happening. We don't need to implement all the methods, but it gives us an idea about what is the state of my application. So this is very important. That's one reason I've been explaining this again and again, because this is the very first thing you have to understand about Android system if it is involved with a UI. Without UI, how we are going to write an application? But still, Android handles the UI in such a way. So the activity lifecycle undergoes a certain level of processes, and it is simply we can emulate it using our emulator by clicking the back button or hitting the home button. So this is very important. Next, we are going to start adding the user interface, I mean the design or whatever techniques involved. First thing, any layouts, any design, anything you are going to create the UI, it's going to be there in the layout folder. If you expand the resource folder, there you will find couple of other folders. In that, one of a folder called layout. So that layout folder would be containing various XML files used in your application as a UI. So this activity underscore main.xml was created in the very first stage while you create your new application. Couple of questions asked, okay, shall I create activity, shall I keep layout file, something like that. So it was automatically created, but we will be creating our own also, because my application may contain various screens, various pages. As far as in HTML5 concerned, we call them as a pages. So in this case, I'm going to call them as activities. So how many UI or pages going to come? I'm going to say that many activities. Each activity may have their own XML, or maybe sharing the XML with others. Sharing mean the same XML being used for the other activity also, but it is completely separated from the objects involved in the respective activities. We will see them, maybe slightly confusing words still, but we will see them how things could be made. This is I just opened the XML file. A lot of lines are there. Few things. These are all the default stuff. The type declaration, whatever it is. But rest of the part I'll slightly streamline so that we'll have a better view. Unwanted part I'll remove. The context is main activity, just so you can keep it. But these are all not mandatory thing. Okay, padding right, left, top, bottom. It gives a clear idea, right? Okay, padding mean a kind of inner space of your div I was talking about in HTML5. Margin mean the outer space which is going to be taken for your div, in that case for HTML. The similar strategy here, but in this case it's not a div, it is a relative layout. It looks like something different. And I already gave an indication. We have a couple of layouts. More importantly, two layouts we'll be using quite often: relative layout and linear layout. Relative layout I was talking about, it will keep their child nodes either in the top, bottom, left, right orientation. The same what we call uh, linear layout, that will keep the child nodes either in horizontal or vertical orientation. What are they? We'll see them. This text view is nothing but equivalent to a label, or nothing but h1 also. You can not h1 have a magnified font, but it's something like it will simply display a text. We have various views or widgets in Android: text view, edit text, list view, uh, checkbox, radio button, and of course button, normal button. Mostly or usually we use them in HTML as well, but a slightly a different naming convention they have, and it has their own syntax as well. And of course, syntax is done in XML. Okay, a text view contain a text. Of course, it's slightly transformed, but it was containing a text and having a width and height. Remember, you may correlate with CSS properties in this case. I try to give you a kind of attribute value relationship to a particular widget. If I had to talk on in terms of HTML5, the DOM receives some sort of attribute references through CSS. So similar technique here. So a text view, in this case a text, is going to have a width of wrap content and height of wrap content. What is wrap content? And this is the text. For making simple, I'll directly type the content. It's also allowed. You can directly type it, but it's may not be preferred, but you can still type it. So a text view is going to contain a width of wrap content and width is wrap content, height is wrap content. I can see the preview of the same. There will be a tab called design, a small tab you would notice. I'll have this part minimized. It will give you a preview of what would be exactly shown on the phone. If you notice this thing, it is actually displaying a small text over here. So that's the text I simply typed, and it is actually displaying here. It means, if you notice, if I click on it, the boundary of a text is equivalent to a size of the text whatever been placed. Mean with this wrapping the content, what is the size of the content, that many size the particular width would be taken. Height, whatever the height the content takes, the same height would be taken. It means if the content gets extended, automatically the size of the text view will also be adjusted. So that is called wrapping the content. So this property we will see slightly in a different terminologies. Let me move on to a text preview. Instead of wrap content, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give another property, match parent. I'm going to keep the same for height. Going to save. I'm going to move on to design again. If you notice, I could see a change here. The width of the content or the width of this text view, it is exactly equivalent to a parent, or mean the screen size. But actually it is meaning the width of the parent mean the relative layout which is wrapping it totally. For example, this particular text view is located within the relative layout, which is a layout, it's an empty or maybe some sort of it looks like a div. So whatever size of the relative layout, the same size the particular text view will also take. So that is called match parent. Height, wrap content I have given, because the size of the text the same height will be taken. So I can give a wrap content or match parent for a layout width and height. Along with this, I can also hard code specific width. For example, if you know 50, in this case, going to make a DP. Per pixel density kind of thing. I mean, I can give a pixel also, but I'm going to give DP. I'll give an explanation slightly different. But as of now, you need to consider layouts or widgets going to take a unit as a DP. Unit name is DP. We were using PX, pixel for HTML file or HTML, CSS. But in this case, the unit name is DP. What is DP? I'll let you know. But as of now, you need to understand, I can directly give a hard-coded value. Okay, take a 50 dp size for a width. So what kind of change this text view right now has got? If you notice, the content has got slightly changed. It only has taken the 50 dp width because a hard-coded or forced value, so the content slightly got adjusted. If you notice, the width is strict, but height is not so strict because I made the height flexible of a wrap content, mean whatever the size of the content accordingly adjusts. So since the second line has come, the second word has come to a second line, of course the height has got adjusted accordingly, but the width, since I gave a hard-coded value, it only has taken 50 dp. So I can give various values for this attribute reference. So in this case, I can give wrap content or match parent or any specific size. So based on the size, this particular widget, in this case the widget name is text view, will have the dimension, mean either width I can give or height I can give those properties. So a text view, nothing but it simply display whatever text it has been assigned for a attribute text, and whatever I type here will be displayed. And width and height, depending on the properties, I can directly give a wrap content or match parent, or I can give a specific width. And it also contains couple of other it can take other attribute reference value. I can push it, so few things, but there are plenty. You can check them by pressing Control space. There will be various choices on what various attribute values you can specify. There are various things, but may not be matching for everything. There may be some specific reference for other widgets. So one may be text size. Remember, it should have an Android prefix, so I would prefer to go ahead with the control space and try to get a suggestion, then I pick it. So I can specify a text size, say 20. For text size, the unit is actually, you can directly use DP also, or you can use SP. SP is exclusive for fonts or text. So, but DP is also accepted, the unit DP. So I made it 20 pixel or 20 dp for a text size. Width is already very small. I don't know how it's going to display in the preview. So let me see how things goes on. So in this case, the hello world, I see the text size has got increased, of course, but since the size has not been changed, because the 50 pixel width is going to, or 50 dp width, it is fixed, and the content has elongated because the wrap content property I've given for a width, height, so it has somehow tried to adjust or squeeze the content within the particular width and height. So I can play around with couple of attribute values. So maybe 30 pixel, a larger one. Okay, let me give a slightly higher also. I'm giving 40 pixel. If you see what really happened, try to squeeze everything within the 20 or 50 pixel or 50 dp width, and height has got adjusted because the wrap content property, because wrap content according to the content size it will automatically adjust. The wrap content property has been given for a height, that's why it somehow put all the contents but adjusted the height only, but where it strictly maintained the width because I forced the width always to be 50 dp. So the best convention what I could have done here is giving the width also wrap content, so the whatever size of a width take whatever content size, whatever it is, accordingly give a width and accordingly maintain height. If I give this property, my text would look proper and of course displays pretty well. But only thing, this highlighted area tells us the particular widget has layout with wrap content and height as a wrap content, because it is exactly same size of the content. So as the content grows, automatically the text view size also will grow. But if you are not sure, what you can do, some sort of I always follow some sort of technique. If my design is always a vertical position based, because it's a small screen, I'm not going to have a complex layout. As you know, even in jQuery mobile, we did not create too much of complex design because we made the content quite simple and we kept one single list view on the top. So all designs were vertically positioned, and of course I got some sort of, when the content exceeds or content overflows, we added a scroll bar so that the user simply swipe up and see the rest of the content. Whereas we maintain the width very strictly, so one content or one div at the time. So similarly, if I want to say, okay, text view always take the full screen in the width, so what I can do is match parent. So I can get a match parent property added. 1 second. Okay, so in this case, I've given a match parent for a layout width. So what kind of difference does it make? If you notice, it's pretty clear. The width has been taken, even though the content size is smaller. The width has been taken for reserved for the text view, the entire screen itself. So any other views comes, won't have space, automatically pull it to the next line. So top one view, and then things will follow one by one. So if you follow a vertical design pattern, according to you, so it's up to you, of course. A developer has the entire privilege to decide what kind of view he want to bring it on, or maybe your client will influence how he wanted to see the UI. So in this case, even though the content size is smaller, but the value what we have given for layout width is match parent. Mean, what is the size of the parent it is holding, the same size it takes. In this case, what is the size of the parent? We have to see that. No, it's actually match parent only, not the entire width of the screen. It's entire width of the relative layout. Because if you notice, relative layout is a parent. Give me 1 second. Relative layout is a parent for this text view, because the node has been put in such a way. Relative layout looks like a root node. Inside there is a node called text view. So for match parent, I have given for a text view, mean what we are going to check, what is the size of the parent, in this case relative view. It also have a match parent, so it's going to take the same size. So it will inherit the property from the parent node. Remember, you have not to get confused with the match parent, means it's always the entire screen. No, it is with respective to the parent node. A parent node is having 100 dp, mean what is match parent, in this case the text view takes mean 100 dp only, because the parent of this text view is having a width 100 dp. So we have to correlate with the parent. That's why the name is match parent. But since the parent itself has a match parent, so both took the same size. But few things we need to consider. This parent already has padding left and right. So it is not exactly the entire screen it has taken. It has given some blank space in the in the right direction, not in the left actually. 16 dp minus mean padding is an inner space. So 16 dp, it won't touch the edge. It will have some smart, some sort of spacing given. So the match parent, it's actually match parent entire screen minus 16 dp. So that's the value the text view is going to take. So I can see that in the view pretty clearly. See, that thing is not touching the edges, even though the match parent, there's some sort of gap is already present. So that's because of the padding property what the in this case the relative layer parent had. So certain thing you need to understand uh, when you create UI, and what kind of a layouting technique you're following. That's the first thing to start with. Layout technique to start with, I'm going to train you on two basic layouts extensively. One is a relative layout, another one is linear layout. So first thing, we have to decide which layout I'm going to use. If I'm using a relative layout, I'll be planning my child at widgets accordingly. For example, linear layout I was talking about will only have a orientation properties such as vertical and horizontal. So that's my technique. If I have to display something side by side, mean I'll have a linear layout horizontal property, or if I want to say one by one, mean I'll have a vertical property. Similarly, if I want to create some sort of grid system, which a kind of widget can be kept with respect to the previous or the next or the bottom or topmost position of another widget, I will use a relative layout. So these things, the very first decision has to be made which layout we are going to use. So probably I'll start with the linear layout. I just wanted to show you how I will be writing everything from the scratch. I'm going to convert this as a linear layout. See, remember the child and root nodes, it is ending at the particular position. So, of course, the linear layout starts here and ends here. So, in this case, let me put it slightly bigger. Okay. These are all the common attribute references. It will be okay for any layouts, but linear layout should contain one particular thing apart from width and height. You may notice any layout widget I will use, I will 100% have layout width and height defined for all the widgets or the layouts. Without that, I cannot define the space for the layout or the widget to take. The other things are optional. These things are optional. You may or you may not have. It is not mandatory. So if you really want to give a padding, you can give. Otherwise, just forget about it. This two schema type will only be for a root node. Most of the time, it will be automatically added by the system, so you don't need to worry about that. So what you need to worry about, if you are writing a layout or a widget mean, remember I'm trying to define a kind of a component or whatever view system in Android, text view, list view, or button, checkboxes, radio button. There are plenty. So these things I am calling them as a widgets. In HTML, we call them DOM or div. Sorry, with respect to JavaScript, we call them as a DOM. Okay. Div tag equivalent in this case linear layout, but we have a slightly pre-configured tag, so in this case linear layout. So linear layout, certain things are mandatory. For all the layout or widget, the width and height, layout width and height, not the just a width and height, is very mandatory. Apart from linear layout, also demand one more thing called orientation, vertical or horizontal. First, we'll see what is vertical. Let it be the text view. First thing, I'll save and see if any changes happened in the UI. Nothing is really. In fact, what really I am seeing here is yeah, padding, that those things I removed, so it's nothing is there. It's touching at the entire screen, so up to the edge of the screen. So that's fine. We'll decide if at all required. We'll think about them. Okay, so I already have a text view. I'm going to add a couple of views. In this case, a button. If you see, Android Studio puts various things for you. The mandatory thing is already been put. So button, I want to take a button, occupy the entire width of the parent. So match parent. Height, wrap content, small button. I don't want to make it as a big button. And of course, other attributes like what I want to display on the button. So text, a button. Simple. The linear layout contains a vertical orientation property. It means it will place their child in a vertical direction. Vertical mean one by one. First one will always be on the top, the second will below to the first component. So one by one. So I'll put one more button, so that couple of button we'll put, so we'll see how things been organized. So two buttons have placed. Need to see how the preview looks like. If you notice the hello world and followed by another button and bottom to another button. The buttons have occupied the width entirely because I've given the width match parent, and height as a wrap content with size of the text, and it has a built-in some sort of padding looks like, but okay, fine, it looks fine for us. And another button. Remember, everything has been positioned vertically followed by another. So first one, the second one, the third one. So it's a vertical orientation. So linear layout automatically put their childs, if I specify the orientation vertical. We have one more orientation that also we'll look at it. Horizontal. Orientation I'm giving horizontal. So horizontal will keep everything side by side. The first one will start from the leftmost direction and to the next horizontal direction, and another node will be coming. So this is the first node in the leftmost direction, and next would be button and another button. So let's see if any changes happened in the UI. This is pretty obvious. I'm seeing only text view, but I don't see the other two buttons. One reason, linear layout have put them into horizontal direction, but the problem is this hello world, the text view has taken the entire width of the parent. There is no room for other guys to be displayed. Of course they are there, it's there, but it's not shown because this guy has taken the entire width. Where is the space for another to be shown in this case? It's there, but it's somewhere there, but your phone screen over, so it's not displaying. So to make that display, we have to do some sort of adjustment to our layout. So let us see what I can do. Maybe I'll reduce the size of the text, or probably I'll maybe making it 30, but still it won't be sufficient because it is going to take the entire width of the parent. So I may need to either do a wrap content so that the content size, because the content size is smaller, so there will be a smaller text view, so that there will be other option to show a button also. So I've saved them. Let me quit, see how things are going. Okay, but somehow successful. But text view is showing, but button is also showing, but typically I don't see the third button. Of course, obvious reason, even though the text view retracted, the second button has taken the whatever remaining space available because that has a match parent. So I need to do further adjustments to have them shown on the screen. So let me see. I'll put every guys as a wrap content so that the size will come down. But I'm not sure, still I would see all the buttons, but I'm just trying to fix the particular thing. It worked. So in this case, things are showing as expected because the hello world, the first button, second button. Even though it's not perfect, but at least I managed to show all the widgets. The linear layout keeps their child nodes when it is having an orientation specified as a horizontal, will keep everything as through side by side. So in a horizontal direction. That's what the linear layout having a horizontal property. Linear layout has these two property alone. It doesn't have more than that. Horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. it's up to you to decide how you want to display the UI. So a hello world, if the size of a hello world content exceeds, something will be happening to the rest of the content, or size of the particular button where the text size increase, something will have impact to other also. So you should be very careful if you are using horizontal layout, uh, where if you do not have a particular widget's size, if you do not know if it is flexible, you will always get this kind of maybe it looks like pretty ugly. I don't like it. It's not following any symmetry or any kind of look and feel, so that it looks like a professional design. But sometime you may want to display a similar same size button one by one. For example, the perfect example is the calculator itself. Calculator, first 4 buttons in a row, one by one. So each having the same size button. So that would be perfect if I use a linear layout. So if I have a specific size, so that I can automatically assign them, so that I know about the size of the button, so accordingly the size is being maintained in the horizontal direction also. So couple of scenarios. I'm going to make this word slightly bigger. Things are going out of control. The text view is having a wrap content. It itself occupied because there are a lot of text and force the other buttons to go away from the screen. So in this case, the wrap content is also or it's not a right solution to adapt. So wrap content, because it maintains based on the content size. So it forces the content go away. Maybe the best one would be maintaining a specific value. Because horizontal width I need to worry about, height I don't need to worry. But still nasty, but okay. Somehow I do see all the 3 buttons. But I'm still getting into a various trouble. I don't know what's the size of the screen, so I can't decide a specific size for my widget. I randomly try 50 pixel, 100 pixel, or some other pixel, or maybe DP values, until I get a specific look and feel. But that still costs you much, because it may look perfect in phones having this kind of a portrait look and feel. Some phones are like tablets, have a landscape as a default orientation. There it may look ugly. Or you may be doing a design which will look perfectly for this device, or it may not be looking perfect in other device. So I enter into various trouble here. First thing, match parent did not work. That forced the content to overflow. It went away. Second, giving a wrap content also may not be a right solution, because when the content size increases, wrap content also force the widget to go away. If I give a specific width, somehow I manage to get all the widgets in the screen, but still I have to calculate the size of the phone, and then only I need to plan some sort of proportion so that each will occupy the specifics. Equivalently occupy something else. So linear layout, even though it's pretty easy to handle, but it has some sort of design consideration. Vertical in this case will be very easy, because one widget at a time, and second one followed by another one, so I don't even need to worry about this. For example, uh, let me go back to wrap content itself. I'm going to change it to vertical. No problem, just keep them one by one. It doesn't think about the size of the content, wrap content or horizontal. For a match parent, doesn't matter for it. It will keep everything one by one, whatever it may be. So this text size, okay, 1, and followed by this one and third one, whatever size, it doesn't matter. To make a trick, what I do is I'll make everything as a match parent. So some sort of symmetrical look and feel could be maintained. maybe, but may not be right one. Uh, so, but still, somehow I can easily do a design. So you may encounter some sort of issues if you are using linear layout horizontal property. But what I try to say, horizontal property has a capability to keep the widgets into side by side, whereas the linear layout keep it one by one. Of course, similar technique you could use in HTML. You could have your CSS to do the job. In this case, linear layout built-in a kind of a layouting technique it has. It keeps all their child nodes either into horizontal or vertical. This, if you do not specify the horizontal orientation, it will take a default value. Most of the time, it's showing you error still. Your Android Studio try to alert you stating that hey, you need to specify an orientation if you are using a linear layout. But still, if you do not specify, the default orientation is horizontal. So if you specify only, things will take control. Otherwise, if you do not specify the orientation, linear layout default orientation is horizontal. Try to keep the horizontal layout. So vertical and horizontal is what our subject today. So I'll go back to horizontal. Now I have a specific task. Okay, I'll remove the text view. I'll keep 3 buttons so that we'll have some sort of better look and feel and things we can organize. So third button I'll keep. Only first button is visible. Second, third buttons are horizontally placed, but it is off the view because it is not having enough space. So I can keep a wrap content to fix somehow. But if I place fourth button, I will still have a trouble. Let me place another button. I don't see that. So for better clarity, I'll make some sort of, because I'm going to give you a hands-on exercise next. Using linear layout, you're going to create a calculator layout. So I'm trying to help you. You know how the calculator look like? Same thing you are going to do using Android in this XML using linear layout alone. 4 buttons. Let me put fifth button. Something went wrong. Something it tried to squeeze, but it is not. The fifth button is no more visible. Is there any way I can give a equivalent spacing, and is there any way I can find the width of the screen so that I'll dynamically assign the values of this button in width so that it equivalently occupies the horizontal space? I mean, if you have 10 buttons, each 10 automatically find the width of the screen and automatically get their own dimension so that this all 10 buttons still visible. Automatically the aspect ratio or the size of the button in terms of width adjusted so that everything becomes visible. There is a technique. The fifth button is not visible. We have to make sure that also being displayed. Let's see. If you are using linear layout as a parent, the child node can take one called layout weight. Weight mean some sort of uh, weightage. For example, proportion. So linear layout assume in this case 5 buttons are there. So linear layout is equivalently partitioned as a 5 blocks. So each one will have their own respective weightages. For example, each is going to take weight 1, mean equivalent weightage This layout weight will make sure your linear layout is partitioned in terms of actually I don't know whether it is a width or height, but it made us a 5 distinct blocks equivalently given for each button, because every button is having a weightage of 1. Now I need to tell how to partition. Linear layout could be partitioned either into horizontal or vertical position, sorry, width and height size. So I'm going to share the width alone. So in this case, width you can give 0 dp. Mean I don't know the width, automatically get it from the weightages which has been assigned. So if I make it as 0 dp, mean the weight is going anywhere it finds a 0 dp, mean it will skip the width and try to check the weight. It means it will proceed the partition or proportionate the linear layout in terms of width and to a 5 distinct blocks because of 5 buttons are there. If you notice, all 5 buttons are displaying, all have got the equivalent space. So in this case, the width has been calculated in such a way each has got taken one part of, for example, each having a weight of 1, mean the entire linear layout width has been divided by 5. So each has taken 1/5. So 1 5 1 5 1 divided by 1 divided by 5 1 divided by 5. Whatever may be the size, it automatically adjusts. So in this case, I can specify as many as button automatically in terms of width. It will squeeze it, try to allocate the space for it. The size, the content may become slightly squeezed, but still it will try to give a space. Fix it, adjust and display everything. Each has got one equivalent part of the entire linear layout in terms of width. To do this job, I will have to define, I need to make sure the root node is linear layout, because layout weight will only work with the linear layouts. It won't work with relative layout or any other layouts. So layout weight exclusive for a linear layout. So in order to use a layout weight, the root node or the parent node should be linear layout. Okay. If it is a linear layout, you can assign layout weight, but in which direction you are going to proportionate, you have to tell. If it is orientation horizontal, usually it is width. So if a orientation is horizontal, keep the width to 0 dp, all width, because the width is going to be dynamically calculated. It is not going to take the value from here. So the width will be automatically adjusted based on the weight. For example, in this case, I am giving the weight 2 for the first button. Mean it will take 2 blocks of a given space. Mean twice the size of other buttons. If you notice, the very first button alone has taken twice the size of other button in the width. The rest has been again squeezed in order to give a spacing between them. So the very first button has taken, so there are 7 buttons, so partition number 8. So 1 by 8 being partition, in that 2 by 8 this particular button has taken in terms of width, where others have been taken 1 by 8. So you can decide according to a layout weightage. So this is particularly helpful if you are using layout orientation horizontal, because the width is smaller typically. So I can use a layout weight to dynamically assign the size of the button in terms of width, so that all the buttons or any other widgets could be made visible. Now I don't need to worry about some sort of what kind of size of the screen, because based on the screen size, in this case linear layout, because it is a root layout, the size would be accordingly adjusted. So I put it back because there are plenty of buttons. Okay, now this is particularly true for what you call horizontal layout. Same I can use for orientation vertical also. Vertical exactly the same, but in the vertical direction. First thing I made it vertical, this guy started throwing error because vertical, if it is a vertical layout weight should have been assigned to a height direction only. So I'll make everything match parent, because one button at a time. For safer side, I'll remove the layout weight. First see if at all the layout weight needed, then we'll put it, otherwise we'll leave it. Because height is usually pretty bigger in terms of a phone. On phone is slightly bigger. This guy still have a weight. Okay, because phone vertical orientation slightly larger. Probably I don't need, because I could still see all the 7 buttons. But what if your buttons grows? For just reproducing the same thing. Couple of buttons, in this case linear layout could not accommodate, couldn't show. So in that case I can still use a layout weight, but in this time the layout weight I will specify for height, because I've been using linear layout orientation vertical. Otherwise, even though let me go back, because there are probable other solution as well, but still, even though if you have very less button, couple of space being wasted also, that's also not good. I need to have my content spread fully on the phone. So I could either make all the buttons centrally located, or I really don't like to see an empty space. So that can also be avoided if I use a layout weight. Before that, there is one more fix also. Another one is called gravity like alignment. Gravity I specified for a linear layout, so it will make sure all buttons having a gravity center. Mean buttons have come to center, so that equivalent white space has been given on the top or bottom. Width it cannot put center because already width is full. So you can use a layout gravity to at least show the content slightly better. In other words, if we do not have a gravity center, I can go ahead and give a weight, so that, so I'm going to give layout weight back to 1, but in this time the height I'm going to keep 0 dp. So the expected behavior, since the layout weight has been defined, it has to skip one direction or one particular dimension. Since the orientation vertical has been used, I am skipping the height, because height would be automatically dynamically calculated based on the parent size. Each is going to have a equivalent partitions in this case. So I may get the entire button fully spread and has equivalently, automatically the sizing is adjusted. So the height has been adjusted so that all the buttons are visible still and has equivalently occupied the height. So if I add one more button, the 8th button automatically, the size slightly been retracted, and of course the 8th button has been given a space. So linear layout can do a lot of things. Uh, it can keep the component side by side. It can keep the component one by one, I mean horizontal or vertical. And of course, not only for button, I just use the button for my testing purpose. There are other components such as text view. Let me use another one, edit text. Edit text nothing but is exact equivalent to a input text field having a type set as text. So with, in this case, match parent, height, wrap content, placeholder, we had a attribute definition for input text. In this case, this is equivalent hint, something I can put. So there is a input text field has been added. So if you run the code in your emulator, you should see this particular input text field. As soon as you tap on this, your software keyboard will appear. You can type it. So this is equivalent to, if you are using what you call HTML file, it is equivalent to input text field. So we call it as a edit text here. So where user can type something. So you can use various widgets, but I just use the edit text and text view. And I'm the one, I always don't prefer something touching the corners. My design always have some sort of margins or padding given. So let us see few things I can work on. I can give a padding. Padding top, left, right direction means specific direction. Otherwise, if you give padding, just padding mean it will equivalently give a padding spacing between all the corners. So say 5. So maybe let give it 10 dp. I'm giving the padding for linear layout. So you may notice the particular inner space has been taken. So the things are not touching the edges. And automatically it has given the padding for specific content, so that automatically it has put some sort of level of padding. Okay, instead of padding, there is a margin. It is same like a padding, but it is outer space. So you still get a similar look, but in this case what you need to assume your linear layout size itself got slightly retracted because outside some 10 dp space has been taken. So depending on your requirement, you may go ahead using padding or margin. First try padding. If it works, use it. Otherwise, if it doesn't work, use the layout margin, because layout margin tells it is not just a margin alone, it is for the layout the margin size being assigned. So whatever you prefer, if you want to give us some sort of spacing between that, you can go ahead. So how do I see this in my application? Since I created some look and feel, and with the tabs design and text, by toggling between them I saw a small preview, but I want to see it in a device. Going to main activity, that's where the first activity. How it is the first activity we'll see, but going to on create, just after super on create, just after super mean just let the on create default thing, whatever execution continue, then you can add one line or one method, set content view r mean resource folder. In that folder called layout, in that your XML file, in this case the XML file name is activity main. You may see that in this R folder, mean R, this cap R, in that there is a folder called layout, in that there is an XML called activity main. So this is what I have been added here. So in this case, r.layout.activity main, R is a resource folder, layout is inside the resource folder there is a folder called layout, in that there is an XML file called activity main. You don't need to put any suffix. How actually been assigned main, this R is a constant layout, the particular ID which has been assigned inside the layout file and is going to have a file name called activity main. So once I call through set content view, the particular view from the XML would be rendered into your Java class. So the result would be, need to hit run button. That's right, until the Gradle finish the boot. Okay, choice. You got it. So it's all buttons. All your design being rendered. Of course, input text field. If you are using a real phone, you will get the keyboard popping up. Of course, I can type like a login form or whatever form you want to use it. So this is the edit text and buttons. If you notice, the button is having a touch sensitivity. It looks like when I touch, it slightly changes the color when I release it. So that's actually tells it's a button. Mean button having some sort of event listening, same like what we did there on click. Here also we have on click. Sorry, I clicked the home button. But so buttons looks like it is having some sort of clicking to be added. Okay, so doing the design in XML and finally call it in Java by using set content view, by giving the argument in hierarchical saying that r.layout dot whatever the file name. Of course, your Android Studio will try to give you a suggestion of various XML file whatever being there in added. So this is the way you have to use to, I mean you have to get used to, because you have to create your design in XML, and finally where the design is being rendered, simply call the set content view on create block and attach it. Once you add this line, all your objects, remember in this case I have almost 9 objects or 10 objects. What are all the objects? One object is a relative layout, which is hidden, but it is there. And another one, second object is the edit text, and I have 8 buttons. So totally, I have 10 objects defined or called in this XML file. So when you call, all the 10 objects now can be called in Java. So mean it's been can be treated as an object. You know, like a string, relative layout is also an object. So like button or everything is a Java objects in this case. I can access them, modify them, change them, detect them, listen the button, whatever up and down sequence, everything I can do. That's from the next step. But the very first thing, you have to write this application. Get used to what is linear and horizontal, so linear layout, horizontal and vertical orientation, and try to bring various widgets. In this case, in this example, I've just used an edit text and a button. Try to see without layout weight on how things goes on, and with layout weight how you can have this done. But I really don't want to see this design. I want you to create a calculator look and feel design, a calculator layout. How the calculator will look like, let me see if I can produce any. Using linear layout, you have to create that. Just a layout, I don't want the functionality. Functionality, of course, we are going to do, but not now. And that's you guys have to do, in fact. I'll try to see if I can bring any look and feel. Yeah, this is pretty fine for me. If you see this kind of a layout, I want you to create. You don't need to create everything in any text on the top. Maybe your buttons having 0 to 9. Maybe this particular square matrix alone. You can create using that. That's it. I have to try, of course. That will trigger you a lot of questions as well. But rules, I have already told you. You should use only linear layout. Of course, that's the only thing I have explained to you. So you will use a linear layout. You can use horizontal, vertical orientation however way you want. You can nest the linear layout. Mean a linear layout can also contain another linear layout as a child. So such certain suggestion I have already given. And all buttons should have a equivalent spacing or proportional spacing. But nothing, no hard-coded value should be there like 50 dp, 60 dp something. It's up to you, but it should have a equivalent spacing. So the content spread clearly with a given string. So you can start this after the break. Meanwhile, I'll upload the source codes. So you can take that as a reference. Yep. When the press the home button?
When the application is open, I press the home button.
Okay.
It will go in the background.
Hmm.
So when I try to open the application again, it will call resume.
Hmm.
So in that case, will it load the same content?
Yes, of course. You can reproduce it.
But
I've typed something here. So I'm doing a job. I have two options. If I click home button, it what I said, if I click the home button, the application goes to background, but still the application alive. So what would really I could expect getting the same thing. The text is there still. But the problem if I click the back button, application closed, whatever I typed also lost, and application will start from the very beginning. That's a pretty basic understanding. Okay, fine. So you guys can take a break. I'll meanwhile I'll upload the source codes.